Hi, I'm Katrin from the Maturaexpress English team, and today we're going to show you some oral exams on the working world. Okay, so let's get right in. Topic is the working world. So about workplace, careers, such and such. First topic we're going to talk about today is gap years and career breaks, meaning gap year in school, during your work life, and then career breaks who you just stopped in between and said, okay, no, I'm not going to continue working here, and afterwards did something completely different, or you may have taken a sabbatical, and then we're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages here. Obviously, we're going to start the introduction with the self-introduction, meaning you will be asked some questions about your career and future plans. That is what we've talked about the last couple of weeks, what you can answer there for your education and your future plans. Then the next thing is a role play. The benefits of taking a gap year, and this is the situation. You work as a recruiter for a big company and have been asked to hold a presentation for secondary school students, the examiners, about the benefits of taking a gap year. Your task is you give a brief introductory talk to your audience about gap years, and you talk about different gap year opportunities, the benefits from taking a gap year for your career, and when to take a gap year. Okay? So, then the second part, where you're still in your role, is the reasons for taking a gap year. After your presentation, you open the discussion up to questions from your listeners about the benefits and disadvantages of gap years. Use the information from the attached text, the big decision, should I take a gap year? See below, or see the link that I've attached. As well as your own ideas during the conversation. And then at the very end, after the role play, the follow-up discussion, after the role play, take an active part in a short discussion about the topic, the working world, with your examiners. They're going to ask you some questions, and you should ask them some questions too. Okay, so then let's start with welcoming my colleague Timna.
Hello.
Hello. And then you ready to take the oral exam?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, so welcome to your oral exam.
Thank you.
You've chosen the topic, the working world.
Yes.
But first, let's talk about you for a while. Where do you currently work?
Well, currently I'm actually training to be a nurse. So I work at a hospital.
Okay. And what is your what are your plans for your future after finishing your training?
Yes, well, for the future, of course, I want to finish my training. And then I would like to grow as a nurse and just be more confident in taking care of people and in my working environment, and just gaining more experiences by, yeah, working.
Okay. Do you have what are your responsibilities at work?
Well, as a nurse, I have a lot of responsibilities actually. At the hospital that I work at, I have to look after the patients and see to them, and remember that they, or look, or yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, I have to look after the patients and give them everything they need, both health-wise and also, you know, if they need a drink or if they need their food, or anything that they basically need to be comfortable. I also have to look after the doctors and make sure that they have everything they need and all their patients and the doctors are aligned, and that everything is ready for the doctor's visit, and so on and so forth. And there's lots of things going into my role.
Okay, so last question. Where do you see yourself in, let's say, 10 years from now?
In 10 years, I'm actually not quite sure, but I think maybe I would like to study and maybe become a doctor myself. We'll see how nursing, how it feels like, how I like it, and if I feel like I want to have a different role, I want to have more responsibilities, I want to have more contact with the patients, then I think I might start to study medicine.
Okay, thank you. So then let's move over to task number 1.
All right. So I'm here today to talk to you about gap years. Since I work for a big company, I am of course definitely for gap years. I think that taking a gap year is really good for growing as a person and for gaining lots of new experiences, meeting new people, and thinking about what you actually want in life, and thinking about what your priorities are in personal life as well as for work, which is then makes it a lot easier for a big company to be able to know what you want, or to know what your skills are, and to know if they want to employ you or not. Also, you gain a lot of international experience. You have new international relations that can help you in your career, which is of course important for a big company. Also, I think there's lots of different opportunities that you can do while taking a gap year. You can of course work, if that's at home or abroad. There's lots of different opportunities. You can work and travel. You can do a year as an au pair at a family, and gain some experience there. You can do some language training. You could also do some social work. So there's really many different things that you can do to broaden your horizon, to gain experience. Basically, that's the big phrase there. What else is very important? Yeah, I basically just said that taking a gap year is really good for your CV, of course, for your resume, because then you can maybe also have some interesting stories to tell about some times that you had that maybe connect to a role that you're applying to. And yeah, there's, in my opinion, only positive things to say about a gap year, especially in relation to your career. And yeah.
Well, thank you for your very inspiring talk.
Thank you.
What I would like to know is, do you advise everyone to take a gap year?
Well, of course, it depends on what kind of person you are, but then again, there's different types of gap years for every person. So if you're not someone who likes to travel, then you could stay at home and do a gap year there and do some social work at home, or gain some work experience at home, try some different jobs. Yeah, so there's really something for everybody out there, I feel like.
Okay, and thank you for your answer. And what would you say, how important is a gap year or a career break of international for our international work life or working world nowadays?
It is very important because, as you said, nowadays work life is very international. There's lots of countries working together globally, which means that there's lots of global relations as well. So it's important to understand how people of different nationalities think, and how different cultures have different mindsets, and you can learn about that when you go to different countries and be there for a while and get to know the culture, basically.
Okay, and when choosing a gap year opportunity, is there kind of like a rank between, like a ranking between the different opportunities? Is like woofing or work and traveling like a lower rank than doing social work in slums in South Africa somewhere?
I think it really depends on the person. Like I said, everybody is different and everybody has different interests and also different ideas of what they want to do later in their career. So there's really nothing more important than something else. So yeah, everything can help you in your career, basically. Everything that you do.
Okay, well, thank you. Let's have a short follow-up discussion. So let's stay with the gap years and career breaks. Yeah. Would you be a person to take a gap year? And if yes, what would you do?
Oh yes, I would love to take a gap year because I think it's an amazing opportunity to travel and see the world and really get to know different countries and food and cultures and people. And yeah, I think I would definitely go away and maybe work and travel, or yeah, work for some months at home and then go traveling or something like that. So that's really what I would do. How about you?
Well, I think I would probably do something like that as well, but I would not be the work and traveling type of person because I'm not that spontaneous. I need kind of my safety net. So I probably would work for a company maybe that sends out volunteers for a specific project. But what do you think about that? You sometimes have to pay for gap years and to get into voluntary programs.
I think that's quite ridiculous, isn't it? Because I think it's especially if you want to do social work, you have to pay for doing that. Then it defeats the whole purpose, I feel like, because you're kind of there to give your work, right? So why would you have to pay for that? I guess there's some difficulties in the whole financial situation and how to pay for all of that, but I feel like there could be some different solution to that, right?
Yes, I think so too. I think it has there's a very negative touch to it when you see, okay, I want to do some voluntary work. I mean, meaning I want to do some good, and then I have to pay like 200 euros just to get in the program, then 300 euros for food and shelter, and that I think is, I find it also very disturbing. Yeah. So. Would you then, if you see a company offering gap years and then the cost, would you then say, oh no, I'm not going to apply for that?
Yeah, definitely. I wouldn't apply for that because I feel like I could possibly find something else that is just as interesting and exciting, but for less money or for free.
Okay. Just one last question out of curiosity. When do you think is the best time for you, just for you personally, to take your gap year?
I think I personally feel like as young as possible, because then I still have lots of opportunities. I'm kind of more free. I don't have, let's say maybe I don't have children that I have to care for, which is obviously quite difficult if you want to just go away for a year. That's not really possible then. So I think as soon as possible, I'd say.
Okay, thank you for that very interesting exam.
Thank you.
Yes, and it's the end of it.
All right.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
So, as you've seen, Timna was a very lively examinee. So when we look at the task, I've asked her a couple questions about her career, and she was very free in her answers and could and talked about what she's trained as, what she wants in her career, and her responsibilities. So she showed quite a broad knowledge of vocabulary and was able to very flexibly answer the questions. Then to task 1, she took on the role very easily, talked about benefits of taking a gap year. She talked about different reasons, different opportunities, about the benefits, and just gave in that short amount of time, gave a very broad introductory talk. She she structured it quite clearly, so that she first talked about that point, then moved on to the next, and then moved on to the third. So it was easy to follow her in her talk. And she also respected or fit her language to the audience she was supposed to. So she talked to secondary school students and used the language for that. So it wasn't like the highest academic language, because that's what you not do when you talk to secondary school students, kind of. Okay, and then for the second task, she clearly stayed in her role, which is asked right there. And then we talked about, should I take a gap year? She could, I mean, she was still a recruiter for a big company, but then could also answer the questions, who should maybe not take a gap year, what's the disadvantage of it, and that, yeah, she could answer every question very clearly, and had good answers, good content. Yes, and the follow-up discussion also she took an active part in it. It was really a discussion, not me asking her all the time, but she asked me a question, so she took a very active part in it, which is a good asset to have. Yes, and that's basically it. It was a very comfortable exam. Okay, good. Let's move on to exam number 2. Yes. Okay, where am I at? Okay, that's my first time running this program. Let's see. What?
I don't know.
Okay. Huh? What happened? Okay. Anybody have an idea?
Can you close it and then open it again on the second?
I have it. Good. Okay, here we are. So, this is about FL. Okay. Good to know. This is about the working poor. We're still in the working world. So the beginning is basically the same. Then we move on to role play about the working poor. You work for a trade union and have been asked to hold a presentation on the International Workers' Day for representatives of other trade unions, who are the examiners, about the problems of the working poor. You give a brief introductory talk to your audience about working poor, talk about reasons for working poverty, obstacles of the working poor, what could be done against it. Do I have the wrong document?
Yeah, I think so. I had something different. Task 1, working poor. You work for a trade union. Yeah.
Okay.
And then there is how the working world has changed over the past decades.
Sorry. So forget about this here, this part. Cross it out in your mind. So let me read it out to you. We're improvising here.
Okay, I can read it out as well.
Okay,
so,
Timna's reading it out.
The first bullet point is how the working world has changed over the last decades, then reasons for these changes, and how these changes have impacted employees.
Yeah, that's better. Okay, I'm really sorry. I don't know why I have the wrong document with me. Okay, but the second part, it's actually about working poor in Britain. And after your presentation, you open up the discussion to questions from your listeners about working poor in other countries. Use the information from the attached text this is the wrong text, but I give you the right link. It's about working poor in Britain, as well as your own ideas during the conversation. I'm really sorry, next time I have the right document. And then obviously it's a follow-up discussion, and you may use these nice little pictures as inspiration. Okay, so I think we're gonna, I mean, Timna has the right document, so, and she's the examinee. Okay.
Okay. Bye.
So, hope you're not confused.
I'm good.
Okay, good. Welcome to your Matura exam in English. I would like to ask you some questions about your career. And the first one is, what did you train as? What is your profession?
Well, I actually work as a beautician. Yes.
Okay, and could you describe your workplace for us?
I work at a beautiful wellness hotel near Aachensee in Tyrol, and it is a big hotel with a beautiful spa area with lots of different activities to do for people, with lots of different massages and manicures, pedicures, facials, and yeah, lots of things to do and to relax there.
Okay, so for how long have you been working there?
I have been working there now for 2 years.
And what is your greatest achievement so far?
I think my greatest achievement generally is that my co-workers respect me a lot, and they give me a lot of responsibilities. They like to give me tasks like organizing dates with clients, and just generally show me that they respect me and that they think that I'm a very good coworker, and that's something that I feel like you have to achieve.
Okay.
Yeah.
That sounds very nice. And what will your next career step be?
My next career step, I think, would be that I would like to open my own salon, actually. So I'm working toward that right now. I'm saving up and gaining experience to be able to work my own place.
Well, good luck with that.
Thank you.
And let's move on to task number 1.
All right.
You've chosen the working world, and you may start.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so as part of a trade union, for me it is very important, as I'm sure it is for you as another trade union as well, the working world, of course, and the working world between our different countries. And as the modern working world is very different from what it used to be, let's say 10 or 20 years ago, there's lots of changes that took place in the last decades, and the working world has become a lot more flexible. There's a lot more different kinds of jobs that kind of are connected to each other, and you might have to change jobs or change companies more than you maybe used to. And also you have to have a lot more experience or a lot more training nowadays, because there's more kind of automated work that is done by machines and not so much by people anymore, which means that the people that would do that work have to be trained as something else and get more education, which is can be quite hard for different people who may not have access to that, or may not really want to do that, which is what is a problem for the working poor nowadays. As I said, there's as the whole world is working together nowadays, and there's international companies, there's more competition as well. There's more different people applying for jobs, so you have to really be very good and show that you are the one that wants that job, and yeah, that can be very hard for some people. And yeah, that's basically what my concerns are, that there's people who might not be able to follow this whole new world. Or how would you think about that? Do you have any questions about that?
Yes, what I would like to ask you is, do you think that like the government or politics could do something to protect those people?
Well, yes, I think so, especially with minimum wages and living wages. There's something that the government can do, right, to be able to make sure that every job is able to pay for your life, right? I feel like that's something that's really important, actually, for governments to look after.
Okay. Do you think that there's a certain group of people who's most endangered by these changes?
Yeah, well, I think that's mostly people with low education and people who don't have a lot of training, because they don't have a lot of different opportunities to take on different jobs. They have to do one job that they know, and there's not really much else that they can do, unless they get some further education, or unless they get some further training. So that's people that I think are most endangered.
And so we as trade unions, what could we do to help those, to look out for those?
Well, for one, we could implement some changes to the whole wage system. We could make sure that everyone or every country has a living wage as opposed to a minimum wage, which would mean that every person gains what they need to earn to make a living, basically, instead of just having a minimum wage that cannot possibly be enough even for one person in that country, which, yeah, I think it's very, very, very important.
So do you think we still have a long way to go?
Yes, definitely. And I feel like also we as trade unions have to work together on that and find a way to make the whole working world more open and more just more friendly to everyone, especially since it's very global now, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Let's move on to the follow-up discussion. Do you think that Austria is a country where the working poor is a big problem?
I feel like it is not talked about a lot, but I think there are quite a lot of people who don't gain very much, or who don't gain enough money to be able to make a living, even in Austria, and that's really something that we should talk about more. Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think usually the people who belong to the working poor are the ones that have the smallest voices. They're not heard, and usually they are the ones who are not in the middle of the discussions when it comes to like new government and stuff. So I think yes, we should talk about that more. Definitely. And what do you think about minimum wage versus living wage?
Yes, well, as I said, I feel like we really should have a living wage instead of a minimum wage, because it doesn't make sense that you pay somebody so little that they can't afford to live. Like, what sense does that make? That's not good for nobody, because then how would they then contribute to economy? They can't, because they don't have any money. So that's kind of a whole circle that's, really not closing or not, I don't know. It's really hard.
Yes. And what do you think, there are lots and lots of people who are against living or minimum wage. Can you imagine what their reasons are?
I think, for one, I think many people don't differentiate between a living wage and a minimum wage and don't really know what either of them means, because it makes sense to be against the minimum wage as for the reasons that I just said. But the living wage would be that people earn enough to be able to make a living, which is something good, and from there you can go upwards. So I think that's the first thing that people don't really know what they're talking about.
Okay, and so when we talk about the whole like tourism factor in the working world and tourism, tourists coming into the country and they want like cheap food, cheap accommodation because they don't want to spend an awful lot. But do you think that also pressures like the working poor and like the companies not paying them enough?
Definitely, because of course every company wants to keep the prices for their products, whatever they are, as low as possible to be able to be attractive to consumers. And that's why they don't pay their workers very much or their employees very much. And that's really something that has to be changed, right?
Yes, I totally agree. I think we as consumers also have to be a part in that.
Definitely.
And I think that's a very nice closing word. Right, thank you for the exam.
Thank
and then
you.
We'll move on to, we're going to leave it that. Although it's these are the wrong bullet points. Sorry for that again. So let's start at the beginning. This time Timna was a beautician, and as you've noticed, with the first question she was very short, just said, I'm a beautician, but then in the next questions she had so much more to say, was very eloquent, was very fun to talk to her and listen, and her answers kind of led the way to the next couple questions. So that was very lively, very very good to talk to her in that moment. And the working poor, the role play, she obviously took on her role as trade union representative very well, meaning that she changed her language in comparison to the first exam to a different level. She used vocabulary that a representative of a trade union would use, like living wage, minimum wage. She connected to the audience because they are from trade unions, so they're on the same side. She talked about the 3 different bullet points that are obviously wrong here, but she had them right on her paper. And then also on the second task, she was very well informed and connected to the text and used information from the text to answer very clearly. And also when I as a trade union asked her, she connected to me as a trade unionist back, so she stayed in her role and had a great range of vocabulary and could answer any question I asked her. The follow-up discussion, she then clearly stepped out of her role. She took an active part in like asking me back and forth, so really discussing points. And then you could see that her answers kind of changed just from her motivation when she talked about living wage versus minimum wage. And again here, very well informed, very good background knowledge that she put in her answers, and also a great range of vocabulary again. So it was quite a good exam. So I think that's it for today. Next time I do have the right documents. So this is the first and last altogether. Here, I've learned that. Ha. Okay, well, we'll worry about that later. Okay, so next week it's Tim there again with another topic. Yes, so we hope you tune in then again, and we'll see you next week. So bye-bye.